Yo, what's up guys? It's your boy Shieldcoomer slash Sirigath, and in this video we're gonna go over a real quick well, not a very quick obviously, but Halls of Valor 23 on a Fortified week. So this dungeon in particular I find very interesting because
Empowering.
um in a lot of cases certain dungeons are easier on certain weeks. I think this one is kind of balanced out. I think it has its difficulties on both weeks. I do think that it's sort of here I don't know why I'm walking into this storm. That is yeah, that was that was very debatable. I'm pretty sure I was mostly focusing on a tank, you know, a rare brewmaster monk tank. You know, you don't get to see that very often. But yeah, in particular, what made this week interesting was the fact that there was like two pretty difficult affixes in my opinion, raging and quaking. And now you might say like, quaking difficult? Like, what is this guy on? Feel free to disagree with me, but as a I'm sure like if you're ever playing Resto Druid, which a lot of people are this season, you're probably gonna be thinking this guy is on some high. This guy's high, you know. But yeah, for this priest, quaking kind of sucks. I think like in particular both priest specs really don't like quaking, and there is a couple of bursty moments in these dungeons nowadays where you absolutely have to cast things to keep people alive, and if quaking happens to come in that moment, which often it does, you just kind of have to let somebody die or hope they have like a big health pot or something to keep themselves alive until quaking is over. And that's just the way it is. Obviously you can plan for these things, and you know, after you've experienced them a couple of times, you start to be more prepared. But I remember like one time I was doing a key, I was even it was like a chill like 17 or something. Not, this was a long time ago by the way, but I was helping with some weekly someone, I don't know, and it was sort of like just a chill key, right? But on Hyrja, the quaking almost killed us because I couldn't like set up properly and stuff. So yeah, there's definitely some difficulties on during quaking week. Definitely a very unpleasant week for these burst moments, since you do have to keep up you know, with the timing and stuff. And surprisingly, I have still not gotten the quaking weak aura. There's actually a weak aura that will predict quaking, like it will tell you when there's a chance of quaking happening. Because to my understanding, and of course correct me if I'm wrong, I mean I love, you know, when people tell me I'm wrong. That's actually unironically my favorite thing. But it is to my understanding that quaking isn't like set in stone. Quaking will simply, as fancy bit of footwork there, quaking will simply have a chance of happening every now and then, right? There's like, I don't know, like 40 seconds or something, and you know, it might happen, it might not. It's kind of like, I don't want to say it's 50-50, but it has a chance of happening, so it's not like consistent as far as I know. But yeah, in general in this patch people are staying stacked way more than ever before, I think. So because of that, I deem quaking as a difficult affix. I will say it is difficult. Of course there are worse ones, but I overall think that affix is quite irritating for healers, and I'm sure my caster friends that are DPSers will agree. Anyhow, I did want to say one thing though. I think like overall for affixes, I really hope that we're heading into an era where there's gonna be like a general overhaul of affixes. As somebody who really highly enjoys M+, and as somebody who I like whole PvE content. Like I live for raids. Progress is most important to me, like Mythic prog. But I see M+ as sort of like individual prestige, and I know it's not individual. It's also team effort, but it's like you can solo play M+. You can solo play Mythic raid. Like you can, but it's very unlikely it will work out. Like I've seen people manage to get far with pug Mythic raids and stuff. Like it is definitely possible, but it definitely is kind of like a hit or miss, and it's random, and like, you know, you're probably, like, let's be real, you're probably not killing bosses like Batia or even Broodkeeper or Azagat with a pug. Like, everything else I can sort of see be killed, sort of. Even that's a huge if, but I can see it. But these bosses, you're probably not killing them without like proper communication and stuff. And it's just, yeah. I just hope Blizzard. My original point was pay attention. By the way, how I'm using my pain subs here and stuff. You know, gotta keep our eye out on Brewmasters. And this was before Brewmasters got a slightly buff, so they were even worse than they are now, and they're still not that great. Like, it's probably like fourth best tank or something. It's just very underwhelming. They don't really. Like, their main thing is like they do decent damage and they bring some cool like monk CC and stuff, but they're pretty underwhelming in general. This guy did a great job though. Like, here's my logic. Like, any class, I mean, they could say the same about this Christ, right? Like, this Christ is probably like fourth best healer or something. But it's like, if you know how to play your spec, every spec is viable. This is something that is definitely true this tier, and I really like that. I'm very grateful to Blizzard for finally. I feel like we've hit that beautiful point in balance where literally every spec is viable. They've done a great job at, not initially perhaps, but they've done a great job of adjusting every spec to give them some sort of niche and some sort of like strength that doesn't like automatically skyrockets them into like top tier, but it does kind of push them to the point where they are actually playable and useful. I think it's no surprise that Evoker in particular has been as strong as it is. It's, you know, it's a new class, a new spec, new everything race as well, and the whole expansion is based around them. So I think it was pretty predictable that Evoker will be strong. Maybe people expected it to not be as strong. You know, maybe we hope Blizzard learned something in the past, but nevertheless, I think balancing has been good. So, you know, a little bit of a shout out to Blizzard. I know it's popular to hate on Blizzard nowadays, but I do like to give credit where credit is due. I think balancing this expansion, I mean, I've played a couple of healing specs and they all feel great. And I've looked into some other that I don't play and they've also felt great. So just want to say like kudos for that. That is definitely something to do with, you know, the way the Blizzard has decided to change things. Anyway, let's get back to the dungeon a little bit as we're heading into these difficult packs. Obviously, you know, this is just about, as always, M+ comes down to interrupts for the most part, using your CCs for the most part, and also on top of that, it will always come down to how pulls are managed. Tank, you know, hopefully tracking people's CDs, knowing when he can do these big pulls, such as this one. And knowing what he's comfortable tanking. On fortified weeks, there is genuine chance that tanks die on high keys, so you as a healer, you have to keep your eye out on that. However, the good thing about it is, as this priest, you actually have pretty good tank healing. This used to not be the case, by the way. It used to be sort of lackluster in tank healing, especially given how and they did like a good that was a very big fear before they were about to breach armor onto him, so that is very important, like using your CC and stuff. Yeah, we used to kind of be like mediocre at tank healing. Like, it wasn't the worst, but we needed the synergy with tanks that had self-sustain. Nowadays that's not really the case. Our heals are strong. You can also use your penance. Obviously, ideally, I always say you should avoid using penance defensively unless absolutely necessary. Your main healing should always, I mean, always is a strong word. It's always situational, but your healing for the most part should be coming from atonement. That's what our spec is designed to do. And considering the Radiance buff that happened, it should come from Radiance as well. Radiance is extremely strong right now, and so is Flash Heal, by the way. So these two abilities right now are actually do healing. I have found myself a couple of times in situations where I will be hard healing with these abilities. It is very rare. It's usually when everybody's bleeding at a very consistent rate and you run out of Radiance charges that you have to rely on such a thing. And you've already used all your other tools. And actually, funnily enough, this might really happen on Hyrja. This might be a Hyrja thing. We might see it here. I'm not sure. I know I've done this key on Tyrannical as well, and it was very sweaty. I've done it on Grievous Week, nonetheless, you know, to make it even worse. So that was an absolute nightmare. I highly do not recommend that. Like, holy, that was awful. But as you can see here, I mean, here's why I mentioned like Quaking being such an annoying affix. It really is. But here, you know, I want to remind you guys like the best, not the best. Okay, I'm not gonna say the best way to ramp. Who am I to tell you what the best way is to ramp? But in general, the way I find to be more efficient with the ramp is I will do one Radiance. Usually I will do it during the tick, just to kind of like, make sure I have some healing from Radiance, since it is such a strong heal. But sometimes you might want to do it preemptively and save your second Radiance for the actual healing part, because sometimes, you know, if you're planning to go full damage mode to heal, then you have to kind of preset this. Sometimes it depends how bursty the damage is. If it's gradual enough, you can set up during first few ticks. If it's bursty, you might need to set up preemptively. For this, I think both is fine, depending on how high the key level is. If people have defensives, if you're using barrier and stuff like that. Don't forget now, this is fortified, so these guys are a bit stronger and stuff. They're really scary, so that those storms were very, very difficult to heal. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, the best way to ramp is I like to throw one Radiance. I will put double dots on the target, so you get the 24-second refresh. Ideally, you will have that before you even do anything, because you want to have like, you want to not cast your Purge the Wicked if you can help it. It's not a very efficient like insta heal. It will do some healing, but you just want the dot to be up, so when you consume it with Mind Blast and stuff, and with your yeah, you just want it to kind of like, you know, provide you that extra healing through expiation instead of, you know, relying on the actual heal from the tick and from the damage it does. Yeah, we'll see. Like that was really bad, by the way. That almost wiped us, and I realized I have no barrier either. Luckily, I had a good state of mind there, and I popped the healing pot. But as you can see now, because I have no setup, it's too late for me as disc, and this is the difficulty of playing disc. If you don't set up, if you don't like, you know, I guess predict you're gonna fuck up, then things get very, very difficult. And as you can see, I mean, I rolled sorry. It's not like anybody cares, but it was a pretty bad mistake, and at the worst possible timing as well, because here just Storm might actually be like the highest bursting damage in this whole expansion in terms of like M+, and it's the last place where you want to get locked. It's pretty awful. It really is. Anyhow, another storm, so here we'll prepare a little bit differently. I had to dodge the circle there. That overlap is really nasty, by the way. That overlap is disgusting. And here one more mistake I made is I'm not using Mindbender. It's pretty bad. You should, almost every storm you should be able to have Mindbender, because you can farm it before. I think it's because I was scared to use one of the globals on the actual Mindbender, since people were bleeding so fast. It's just unpleasant. So yeah, I want to say like how to do proper ramp, and I was hoping I'll do it here, and I never got around to like actually showing you guys. But as I said, the best way is Radiance into, you know, full dots, and then you wanna, I like the Schism before Shadow Covenant, because I want to get the full value out of it, which means 3 Mind Blasts before it expires. Now you can Shadow Covenant and then Schism, but I feel like it just reduces the time you have your Schism up. And here I had a full ramp, which is kind of unfortunate because here I also had the barrier, which just makes everybody so much tankier. Still lost Hunter though. It's just kind of sloppy. I'm gonna be honest, haven't had like that many experience at this point with this. Later when I was trying to do this on Tyrannical as well, I have learned a few things as well, and it was better. But yeah, it's this storm is extremely aggressive and it's a lot of damage, and really it truly depends like how tanky your group is. And it also goes a long way if you're playing with like demon hunters and warriors, whatever can provide you some sort of like sustain at that moment. So even like hunter boomkins, not just boomkins, druids in general with their nature's vigil, and shamans with the whatever you call it. It's not ancestral guidance, it's transcendence or whatever. The thing that heals, the more damage they do, it's great. Shadow priest obviously, but I doubt you'll be playing with a shadow priest as a priest healer. That's, well, it's not completely unlikely considering how strong shadow priest is, but it does seem a little bit suboptimal, like, because I'd like to think that you shouldn't double class in M+, because every different class brings you a different toolkit and different buff as well. So I don't like the double classes, but sometimes a class is just so strong that it makes sense. I mean, think of Shadowlands season 3-4 where people were like playing double warlock and stuff. It was definitely a thing at the time. So yeah, you can definitely do that. It's not the worst, but yeah, I just said it because an example of like Vampiric Embrace. And here on these packs, I mean, important thing is you need to obviously interrupt Etch. You need to make sure you keep your eye out on tank, because tank can get clapped here. Shouldn't, but it can happen. You gotta watch out for these. You know, I like to shield, and here you see I saw it targeting me, so I just popped defensives. Now of course they interrupted, which is a good thing, but I just wanted to make sure. It's these abilities you have to watch out for. You know, you gotta set up your UI in a way where you can see it as a healer, very important. You know, the importance of UI cannot be overestimated. I still need to fix my UI a little bit. It needs a little bit of refinement. I have like this problem where I've set my grid in a way where when tanks have multiple buffs, for some reason it will only show a debuff. For some reason it will only show one if they're both dispellable, and that's very rarely a problem, but there are some situations where it can be a problem, and I gotta sort that out, and I'm not really sure which particular like part of the setup is causing that to happen. Tried to look into it, but I never really gave it like too much time or proper thought, so you know, I can't really complain. It's on me to kind of do that, but yeah, as I said, like obviously you want to be able to see a lot of the things. Now my setup is a little bit small. Like I thought about this yesterday, literally. My frames are very tiny, and that kind of limits the space that I have to see the debuffs and stuff. I thought about increasing them, but I play on like 1080 monitor, and already I feel like in raid this takes a lot of my like viewing space. You know, in future when I hopefully when and not if I upgrade to like a 27-inch monitor or something, hopefully that will like free up a little bit of space for me to increase the size of my frames. And yeah, I mean, you can see that, you know, this, you know, WoW is it's a game that benefits a lot, like a lot of other competitive games. It benefits a lot from, you know, having better gear and stuff. You know, one can't really deny that. I'm not making excuses here, but I am sort of seeing how, you know, some limitations of my setup exist, and I have to deal with it, and that's okay. That's okay. I think this kind of like makes your it sort of makes your character stronger, if that makes sense. Maybe that's a weird way of putting it, but you know, you grow in character by doing these things. And then when you do eventually upgrade, you'll like ascend to god level. And sometimes I do that, by the way. I can manage to do that jump, sometimes I don't. I don't know what it depends on, but I just decided to take the normal path so people don't wait for me. And here, okay, so this boss is really hard, actually. It hurts a lot, and you gotta be ready to react with your spells very quickly sometimes. And the additional difficulty of this is that in between, people like to do wolf pack, and wolf pack can be tricky depending on which week it is. So for example, on Quaking, you can't just go on the pillar and like completely nullify the jump mechanics. So yeah, as you can see, like this guy just got clapped. It's unfortunate. It's like, is it my fault? Probably a little bit. You know, you gotta make sure people are topped up for that. But I really didn't want to commit any big CDs for this, and maybe that was my mistake. I feel like maybe Radiance could have been committed there. Sorry, not Radiance, Rupture. So maybe Rupture was the thing there. And as you can see here, I learned my lesson. Like, I was thinking like which CDs I'm willing to commit here, and I decided that Rupture is fine. And you know, together with Mindbender, we managed to get some sort of survivability going for the group. But in general, I think this Boomy was very squishy. I feel like overall throughout the key, like looking at how much damage he takes from things and stuff, it just feels a little bit squishy. You know, sometimes people play with like low avoidance, no leech, no full sockets, low versatility and stuff. I highly recommend, like, if for some reason any DPS is watching this, like as you're pushing keys, getting a more, because the way people gear, unfortunately, our community, I feel like WoW community is sort of like slaves to sims and numbers, which is completely fine, but in real life scenarios, you know, like what's better, getting like that extra like 200 DPS or getting versatility, which is going to prevent you from being one shot like this? And you know, when you put it like that, he will always be surviving, right? Because I mean, the biggest DPS increase you can have is surviving. So wherever you can grab some versa up to some point, you definitely should. And this was very nasty. Me and Hunter doubled as well. It was really bad. But yeah, it's salvageable. This Mindbender is carrying here, by the way, in case you're wondering how I'm keeping people alive. It's Mindbender, because I even got locked, so it was quite sloppy again from me / Hunter. It's literally the worst thing we can do is like doubling the dot, and he died to it eventually because he also ran from me and I can't kill that. Like, maybe if I was a little bit more like aggressive at trying to keep him alive, I could have made it, but stability of the group is always a priority for me. As a healer, sometimes trying to fix mistakes and overcorrecting things that went wrong will lead to even worse things, if that makes sense, oftentimes. So like, I've had cases where people will get hit before a hard mechanic with something, and I'm like, oh, no problem, I'll use Rupture to keep us alive. And then you get into a situation where you need the Rupture for the next mechanic, really, and you don't have it, and you just run into this problem of like you trying to fix problems ends up causing different problems and stuff like that. So, you know, obviously, like making these judgment calls and stuff comes down to like experience and playing enough, which obviously is still something I also need. Like, I'm not, you know, learning always is a good thing, and developing, adapting, having a plan is the primary thing as a disc though. And then The ability to adapt will just make you a better overall disc. Same as with any other healer. Like, you want to plan your CDs and stuff, but sometimes things don't go according to plan, and how quickly you can adapt will always, you know, decide the difference between failure and success. As I watch these replays, I oftentimes see like things I can improve and stuff like that, you know. So that's always cool. It's one of the things, like, if you're serious about improving and stuff, I always highly recommend watching your own replays, that is. And somebody pulled here for some reason. It was Hunter, of course. It's funny how sloppy this key was, and it was still timed, you know, because people like to say that like holes is almost impossible to time and whatever. It's nasty, definitely. It's tight, but as you can see, you can definitely have some lenience. I wonder how tight it's gonna be. We're already on only 11 minutes, but it is fortified, which means a lot of these things are, like, a lot of the difficult parts are done. I'm not really sure what they were clearing here. I'm assuming bulls and maybe like the elks or whatever they're called, like the deers, stags. But yeah, these packs, like, they're tank clappers, so you do need to pay attention to the tank. And oh yeah, I think I died here. Yeah, that was really weird. That was really weird. I think this was some sort of bug. As you can see, my death recap was literally like not even like real. It was imaginary. And then when I looked here, it showed I got meleeed. That was so weird. I actually don't know what killed me. If somebody knows, I'd like to hear what you guys think, what killed me, because that was really weird. Yeah, that was just super weird. But as I said, I mean, it gets even worse. But yeah, on these packs, try to keep tank alive. I mean, obviously, the longer he can keep things in place, the better it is for the rest of the DPS. That was pretty silly. But yeah, that was pretty silly. And here, a skip, you know, pretty easy to do. And then heading into the upper parts with the kings. Kings are honestly not much to do there. Like, as a healer, there's a dot that you have to kind of like keep somebody alive. Okay, I'm thinking back now. Wait, the only thing that makes sense, why did I die, other than melees, is if when I walked back in, there was no... Wait, that's probably what happened. I didn't see the ability on the ground. That sometimes happens in this expansion. If you're zoned out and you come to the point where the things are happening, like after you die, sometimes the abilities on the floor are invisible. A good example of this is that mini boss that spawns tornadoes and does that big AoE in Algatar Academy. He always does that. I've died to that multiple times, because if you die and you're running back, or if you're drinking and you're like, sometimes I will drink after the tree boss and then I'll like catch up to them, and if you port right back in, you can easily run into circle and die if you're not careful, like, because it will be invisible to you because you're just coming. If you come during the ability being used. So maybe that's what happened. Maybe I ran into it and they were using the ability, and I just walked into it because it was invisible, because I wanted to fear to help out with the interrupt, because I assumed they would be using like a lot to keep tank alive because I wasn't there. But yeah, it's just overall awkward situation. Regardless, it's a mistake on my part as well. I had no business being that close, so let's just accept, you know, some responsibility and move on. I do think that was really weird and glitchy, and, you know, we can whine about the game all we want, but it won't change the fact that, you know, if I didn't die initially and if Hunter didn't pull initially, then none of this would have probably happened. So yeah, Either way, moving on. As I said, these kings, they're pretty chill and pretty easy, as you can see. And here we see a pretty good, like, pretty good damage, honestly, on these guys. Usually these guys take forever. I think people are usually reluctant to pop CDs because they're thinking like, oh, we're right before the boss, I better not use CDs. But then it's like, okay, well, these guys take longer than the boss if nobody's using CDs. So it's like, maybe we should use CDs. But it's pretty annoying. Use your cooldowns, please. I just get this killed. Honestly, like, Skovald doesn't require that much. Like, Skovald is pretty free boss, I dare say. Even like I'd say even on tyrannical, Skovald is kind of easy. The only thing you need to be careful with Skovald is the dots actually hurt. Like, they're actually pretty bad. So if people take 2, it's rough. Yeah, if people take 2, it's rough. Just something to keep in mind.
If these false champions will not yield the Aegis by choice, then they will surrender it in death. Give up the Aegis for
Empowered.
Ragnarok.
And as I said here, I mean, just watch out for Ragnarok. One thing to note about Quaking is if Quaking happens during Ragnarok, you will not be quaked. Remember, you will not be, it will disappear. That is fixed, or at least it should be fixed. However, if he's using this and you get Quaking, you can actually be quaked. So be mindful of that. So don't stack too hard. All you have to do is be behind the shield there. You don't actually have to hide from anything. So just something to keep in mind in case anybody didn't know that. It's good to know. As you can see here, like the dots, they actually kind of hurt. So I'd advise caution. Don't be thinking like, oh, nothing is happening, and then somebody gets dotted and then you're falling behind. And as disc, I always say this is disc, like it's really bad when you're falling behind, because we don't want to be like catching up to the damage. We want to be preemptively ready to heal the damage as it's happening, basically, because we do not have that strong bursty healing. Our numbers are simply not high enough for that. See, I tried to be greedy there. I tried. And then I just realized, like, if I don't shoot like my big parents, it's gonna be rough to keep me up. So I just decided to, you know, use it and then move on. And as you can see, like, I'm still doing good damage overall. Like, I'm doing like 23k and stuff. That's pretty decent damage for a healer on a single target. But my point is, you don't have to be greedy. Like, just keep everybody alive. And yeah, a big power word life there. It's just these little things, you know. And here, like, I'm not using Mindbender for some reason. Oh, there we go. Okay, I thought I'm gonna hold Mindbender, and I was about to criticize myself very harshly for that, but I ended up using it. And unfortunately, I didn't get to use my too many abilities to like proc the slash from Mindbender and to just like return Mindbender CD because the boss was already dying. But it's Mindbender is one of these abilities nowadays that you just want to almost use on CD unless, like, the only exception for this is unless you know there's a specific mechanic where you really feel like you're gonna need a Mindbender, like in that, because if you're if you are how do I put this, like, your total downtime on Mindbender is maybe like 10 to 20 seconds. It's very unlikely that you will need Mindbender in these 20 seconds. So yeah, I just highly recommend using it almost on CD to maximize your damage plus healing. Don't underestimate Mindbender's healing output. It's pretty strong. because it does a lot of damage, so naturally you will get a lot of that value back through atonements. If nothing else, keeping atonement on tank plus one person that might be taking damage and stuff, and then Mindbender will cover up and stuff like that. It's great. Disc is great right now. It's so good. It feels so good to play it. It's just some of our numbers I feel like are still a little bit lackluster, but in general this spec right now feels great. And as you can see here, rupture everyone. It's what I like to do nowadays before the runes, just to kind of keep them alive. At the very least, keep atonements up and give pains up to somebody who might need it. And then we're heading into like a pretty big like damage burst window. I PI. I use my Mindbender here soon, hopefully soon. Anytime now. Yeah. No. Okay. There we go. And then some Mind Blasts. Classic. And we'll see what happens. We get pull in. I'm running. Where am I going? Where the hell am I running? But yeah, that was a little bit weird, but in general, pretty good damage, and we have a minute and a half to kill the boss. It has 6% left. Don't forget this boss dies at 80%, so yeah. Here I'm getting ready to cast full-on Radiance, and of course Hunter is not in range, so he almost dies. And I get a yellow, and I almost make a mistake of where I'm meant to go. And now I'm just focusing on keeping others up, and this guy was out of my range. Luckily, he managed to survive on his own. It was chill, by the way. I still had Health Pot, I still had my Fade and stuff. It was pretty good. Pretty clean Odyn. And I just want to say, while we're killing this boss, while you're watching, as you can see, it get a little bit scary there, as it always does on high keys. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys appreciate it. I appreciate you guys watching, not I hope you guys appreciate it, although I would like to hope that you guys are appreciating the videos as well, because they are a decent amount of effort. You know, if you enjoy the content, feel free to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. I will be uploading some Evoker videos as well, even though Evoker is getting nerfed pretty soon, it looks like, but I enjoy playing it, so I've played it quite a bit. I'll upload some videos of that as well. And I'll be uploading a lot more disc. I want to try and get a hero title with disc this season. That would be really big D move. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. Much love. Hope everybody enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again on the next one. Much love. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Bye, bye, bye.